Only the children of light is gonna understand this.
For there are three philosophical sects among the Jews, the followers of the first of which are the Pharisees, of the second, the Sadducees, and the third sect, which pretends to a severer discipline, are called the Essenes. These last are Jews by birth and Jews by birth.
This is the knowledge of the Essene brotherhood. This is the knowledge of the Essene brotherhood. This is the knowledge of the Essene brotherhood. Taking it back to the way that it was in the beginning.
Once again, peace and blessings, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Happy Sabbath, happy Sabbath, happy Sabbath. This is Essene Community Church of Christ. My name is Archbishop Shamar,
And I'm Bishop Michael.
and we be bringing you today's Sabbath report / lesson. Once again, before we begin, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Post it on your social media platforms. Happy Sabbath to all. All right, we'll be going into this week's Sabbath report / lesson. All right, and we're going into the secret of the times. Once again, the Essene Christian solar calendar and New Year. This is part 2. Once again, we are at the New Year in our new year. And we are approaching the times of Passover, Palm Sunday, right? The Holy Week, right? The most emphasized time of the year for a believer. All right, so what we've been going through is just to let everybody know how we calculate time as a church, all right, and what calendar we're on. And we've been going through the history of that, all right? And with that, we've been going back to last week, seeing how the Most High, through Enoch, right, and then revealed to Moses, has been instilling a 364 calendar, right, with 30-day months, all right, with 4 days for the season added, which are called intercalaries. And we took a look at, the prophecy in Daniel 7:25 about the empire, the fourth empire that was shown to him that would change times and laws. And we went into times and laws, and these were religious observances, right, decrees, royal decrees, right, things that, so we put that things that Christ said, and the actual, laws of the nature and the way the world works. All right, we've been taking a look at just what happened with the calendar, seeing how the calendar was Roman. Christianity was, adopted by Rome. They used those calendars, and just what happened, right? And we took a look at the history, and we were able to see that an Italian and a Jesuit mathematician came up with what was called a golden number, right, that influenced the Gregorian calendar we see today. And we were seeing that, hey, based on the scriptures, God was always instilling a 364, right? And once again, these people who are part of the church that we've seen, they're supposed to go into the Jubilees, the Enoch, but they haven't. They went to an Italian and a Jewish mathematician, not Jewish, Jesuit mathematician, and this is how they came up with the calendar they have today. All right, so we've just been going through a lot of information showing exactly the difference between their calendar, the calendar that the Most High has requested, and why we're using said calendars. All right, so we're going into part 2 today and really honing in on certain things. All right, so where we had stopped at last week is where we were seeing what an intercalary is, intercalary days. And these are days that are added to a moon calendar to get it back in line with the solar calendar. All right, and we've seen that at first the moon naturally has 354 days, and in 3 years it's 30 days back. So every 4th year, the Jews would add 30 days to their calendar. All right, so here we have a leap day where it's 1 day added. Back in the day, it was a 30 days added in a 1 year every 4 years. All right, to catch back up and align back with the solar calendar. All right, and we've seen that the Italian man who introduced to the Pope, right, this Jesuit mathematician, right, and the book, right, they came up with a number that was calculated, a golden number, 365.25, that was able to keep the calendar in line and still be able to follow the Jewish new moon, right, following their new moon observances on the 14th day. So they're trying to still keep the equinox but follow it, not understanding that the Jews' day on the moon, on the 14th of their new moon, is still false because they're following the moon. So we've been able to see all of this, and we're just going to go back and reiterate it once again. All right, so with that being said, we're going to go to Isaiah 53:1 to open up. Isaiah 5:20. All right, through this portion, we've been going through Isaiah 5:20. Is that the beginning? Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, we've been going through Isaiah 5:20, as this is the warning that's given when we're talking about light and darkness, when we're talking about time. And you're going to see that.
It's the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 5, verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good, and woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter.
All right, so woe unto them that call evil good. So woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. All right, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. All right, so there's going to be people that call good evil and evil good. There's going to be people that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And when we're seeing the darkness for light and light for darkness portion, now we're talking about what? We're talking about the calendar, because what is it about the calendar, right? The Most High said he put the sun and the moon in the sky to separate these things. All right, so somebody's going to switch them around or switch the details around or the information around about them. All right. And then once again, when the Most High sets something and calls it good, so when he sets something in place and he says this is good, somebody is, using and going to something else that's out of order and saying that is good, right? So something that's not set good, he didn't see that as fitting, befitting for it. They're saying that is good for it now, right? So these are the things that are transpiring. All right, so once again, peace and blessings, happy Sabbath. This is the secret of the times, Essene Christian solar calendar and New Year. This is part 2. All right, we're going right into it. We're on page, let's get the page in the lesson. We're on page, all right. So we are on page 22. All right, so we're on page 22 or 21 in the document, on the document in the right-hand corner, page 21. All right, so this is going to refresh again. What is an intercalation?
What is, oh, so like you
I'm gonna go ahead.
okay. What is an intercalation? This is out of the Britannica Encyclopedia. Intercalation, insertion of days or months into a calendar to bring it into line with the solar year, year of the seasons. One example is the periodic inclusion of leap year day, February 29th, in the Gregorian calendar now in general use. To keep the months of a lunar calendar, example the Hindu calendar, in their proper seasons, an entire month must be intercalated periodically, because there are a fractional number between 12 and 13 of cycles of the lunar phases or months in a solar year. In cultures without highly developed astronomy, intercalation was done empirically whenever seasons and their properly associated months became noticeably out of step.
All right, so what is intercalation? All right, it's insertion of days or months into a calendar to bring it in line with the solar calendar. And this is why in Jubilees, He said that they're going to go off with all the nations because all the nations, they all follow a solar calendar. So they all have intercalary days that are there to add up to the solar calendar, right? That they're supposed to be in line with. All right. And there's no rule for the intercalary other than, hey, whenever they notice that, hey, your seasons and everything is out of order, like, and you can very well notice it, then align it back with putting and inserting days in there. All right. So this is clearly out of order and chaos, right? And because the order keeps shifting, this is why they add these days. And so whoever comes up with a calendar, some is 1 day, some is 30 days, some is however they're interpreting their calendar. But if they're following the moon, they're going to have to add intercalary days. All right. So once again, going back to what Pope Gregory was introduced to, he was introduced to that this man had a 365.25 calculation, and that it would align so great that every 4 years they would only have to intercalary 1 day. And that's how we have the February 29th leap year. So they thought that science to be able to align everything and make sure nothing goes too off balance, and it comes back that this magic number and this magic start date at March 21st, all right, was going to alleviate all of that. All right, so that's what it's really about. All right, so once again, intercalation is insertion of days or months to bring the lunar calendar, all right, in line with the solar. All right, so we're going to go to the official rules of calculation of Easter from the U.S. Naval Observatory.
It's the official rules of the calculation of Easter from the U.S. Naval Observatory. The date of Easter, astronomical basis of calendars. The principal astronomical cycles are the day based on the rotation of the Earth on its axis, the year based on the revolution of the Earth around the sun, and the month based on the revolution of the moon around the Earth. The complexity of calendars arises because these cycles of revolution do not comprise of integral number of days, and because astronomical cycles are neither constant nor perfectly consumable with each other.
All right, and this is what they try to tell us, right? But when we go into the scriptures, like we did before, going back to number 1 last week, and we seen Enoch, and Enoch was showing it. Enoch was showing perfect divisions up there in the heavens. All right, so you're going to see that who's controlling this information. You're going to see that it's the Pope controlling this information because he's the one that came out with this calculation. There's nobody now that's coming out with a new, different calculation, right? These calculations have been put in from that time and everybody adheres to it. All right, and you're going to see that, but continue.
The tropical year is defined as the mean interval between vernal equinoxes or equinoxes. It corresponds to the cycle of the seasons. The following expression, based on the orbital elements of Laskar in 1986, is used for calculating the length of the tropical year.
All right, so they give you tropical year because there's different places, right? So there's different places, you have tropical year over here, and then where, you know, I guess like Antarctica, different places, they have different type of year too, right? Where the sun goes, operates differently over there, like places where the northern lights are, places like that. So their years are different as well, and their calculation of the years and the sun and the times in them, they can be a little different to why they say there's tropical years, how it is in the tropical season, things of that nature. All right, so continue for us. I mean, we're going to go to the next part there. So they have the little calculation there of how they do it. We're going to skip that part.
However, the interval from a particular vernal equinox to the next may vary from this mean by several minutes. The synodic month, the mean interval between conjunctions of the moon and sun, corresponds to the cycle of lunar phases. The following expression for the synodic month is based on the lunar theory of Chaprant-Touze and Chaprant of 1988. All right, it goes into the equation. All right. Any particular, this is on page 22, any particular phase cycle may vary from the mean by up to 7 hours. In the preceding formulas, T is measured in Julian centuries of terrestrial dynamical time, TDT. which is independent of the variable rotation of the Earth. Thus, the length of the tropical year and synodic month are here defined in the days of 86,400 seconds of international atomic time. From these formulas, we see that the cycles change slowly with time. Furthermore, the formulas should not be considered to be absolute facts. They are the best approximations possible today. Therefore, a calendar year of an integral number of days cannot be perfectly synchronized to the tropical year. Approximate synchronization of calendar months with the lunar phases requires a complex sequence of months of 29 and 30 days. For convenience, it is common to speak of a lunar year of 12 synodic months, or 354 days, 354.36707 days. Three distinct types of calendars have resulted from this situation. A solar calendar, of which the Gregorian calendar in its civil usage is an example, is designed to maintain synchrony with the tropical year. To do so, days are intercalated, forming leap years, to increase the average length of the calendar year. A lunar calendar, such as the Islamic calendar, follows the lunar phase cycle without regard for the tropical year. Thus, the months of the Islamic calendar systematically shift with respect to the months of the Gregorian calendar. The third type of calendar, the lunar solar calendar, has a sequence of months based on the lunar phase cycle, but every few years a whole month is intercalated to bring the calendar back in phase with the tropical year. The Hebrew and Chinese calendars are examples of this type of calendar.
All right, so we're seeing here the different types of calendar. All right, so they've actually called the solar calendar a tropical calendar. All right, so that's what it's lined it up with. So a tropical year is a solar year. And once again, all the intercalations is what they're adding to it to try to align back up with the time of the solar year. All right, so that's what they're trying to do with all the calculations, trying to add everything back up to the solar year, which they've also called a tropical year. All right, so I guess that's the scientific term that they've called it. All right, and they're showing you how all the calendars of the world are operating on the lunar calendar, going back to what the Most High warned us about, that everybody would be using the lunar calendar and they would all fall to the mistake of the days, right, being lodged out of order because of the type of calendar that they are using. And clearly we could see that. Why? Because they had to add intercalations to catch up, right? Because of the wherein it's supposed to be summer, but the calendar is saying we're still in fall. All right, so this is the things that they were experiencing, that as time went on, the calendar would shift so far out of place that they would have to add days to shift it back into balance. All right. So we're seeing the Islamic calendar. We're seeing the Gregorian Hebrew calendar, Chinese calendar. All these people had the same issue and problem. All right, but continue for us.
The statement that Easter Day is the first Sunday after the full moon that occurs after the vernal equinox is only an approximate statement of the actual ecclesiastical rules.
All right, and this is what we're seeing now. Going back to Daniel 7:25, that they were going to change times and laws. These are ecclesiastical rules. That means they came into the church realm and changed the church realm's rules. All right, so give it to us.
All right. The ecclesiastical rules are: the vernal equinox occurs on March.
No, you didn't. You have to finish the top.
Okay, no more.
Yeah.
The full moon involved is not the astronomical full moon, but an ecclesiastical moon determined from tables that keeps more or less in step with the astronomical full moon.
All right, so the astronomical full moon, what are they saying? This is the actual moon's movements. All right, but once again, the tables that they had, they've put down dates that don't align with what's going on around them. They're just principles and laws that they follow on tables. So that's what they're telling you. All right. So, so the ecclesiastical statement, all right, is only approximate. The full moon involved is not astronomical, which means they're not really following a full moon. All right, but it's an ecclesiastical moon, all right? Once again, determined from tables. So they preset them, right? They came up with preset stuff, right? And more or less, they're saying, hey, it keeps in step with the what's set up. And this is the same thing with the equinox. So when someone's telling me, hey, look at this date on the equinox, it's the 20, they put that date there, all right? And they didn't base that date on the actual equinox. They based it on, hey, based on the science that we have and the mathematication, the math that they have, that it should start on this date to keep everything in line. All right, so that's what they've been doing. All right, so give it to us. Give us the ecclesiastical rules.
The ecclesiastical rules are: the vernal equinox occurs on March 21st.
All right, so they just placed the equinox there on March 21st. So there's not really an equinox there, right? They placed it there based on their tables, right? And it could be around there, so it's around the time, but it's not the exact same time, right? And this is what the day most people keep following on or speaking about. Hey, this is the start of the new year. All right, give us the next one.
The ecclesiastical full moon is the 14th day of a tabular lunation new moon.
All right, so the ecclesiastical full moon is a 14th day of a tabular lunation. So once again, they went on tables and put down when they believe the new moon's going to be, and they keep it by that, not by watching it any longer. All right, so once again, they've made that new moon based on tables. So all the Christian times have been preset based on these tables that are not watching the movements of the stuff, of the bodies in the sky. All right, give us the next one.
And Easter falls on the first Sunday following the first ecclesiastical full moon that occurs on or after the day of the vernal equinox.
All right, so once again, Easter falls on that same day. So when on the same table that they came up with, all right, this is when the new moon's gonna pop up, and they put it on the table. That's when they base their Passover or Resurrection Day dates on. So they looked at that table that's been preset, not based on what's happening outside, but based on science that keeps everything in line the best. All right, they base it on that, hey, this is when on their table the Jewish new moon would fall. Therefore, the next Sunday is going to be their Easter or Resurrection Day. And this is how they've been doing it. All right, so people are thinking these are things that they're watching and seeing and actually calculating when they've been preset from the beginning of that time there. All right, so continue for us.
And Easter falls on the first Sunday of the ecclesiastical moon after the first Sunday or the vernal equinox. Easter can never occur before March 22nd or later than April 25th.
All right, so this is their rule. So the way they've, right, which is who's they? The Catholic Church. That's what we went into last week. All right, the Catholic Church is the one who put in the papal bull, right, that changed the calendar, all right, through Pope Gregory. All right, so by their rules, right, that they got through who? The Jesuit mathematician. All right, the Jesuit mathematician, they're making sure that the dates never shift. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep it that, hey, everyone who watches the moon, the dates shift. They came up with a science that the date won't shift. They will constantly bounce between these places here. So between March 22nd and to March 25th, all right, Easter can never occur outside of those, but it's constantly going back and forth because once again, it's not stable, because once it's not centered, right, it's not stable. It's not going to be stable. They haven't put it on anything that's set. All right, so it's not stable because it's not in anything that's properly set down. And that's what the Most High was trying to show us, that their dates would be unstable. All right, and this is why they've had to basically come up with a golden number science that keeps it between. Look how big this date is, March 22nd to April 25th. Back in the days, once again, they were saying that this would shift and it would be November in a place and it's all the way September in one place. All right, because of the shifting of the calendar and them following the moon and it not being in line with what? With the real year. So their years are coming in too early. All right, and if your years are coming in too early, then you're going to bump into seasons that aren't aligning with the time that you're in. And that's what they were having a problem with. All right, so continue for us.
Mm-hmm. The Gregorian dates for the ecclesiastical full moon are determined using the tables in the papal bull Inter gravismus. The Western, Roman Catholic, and Protestant Christian churches use the Gregorian tables, while many Eastern Orthodox Christian churches use older tables based on the Julian calendar.
Hey, 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 hey!
All right.
All right, continue for us. Sorry about that.
The Western, Roman Catholic, and Protestant Christian churches use the Gregorian tables, while many Eastern Orthodox Christian churches use older tables based on the Julian calendar. Thus, the civil date of Easter depends upon which tables, Gregorian or pre-Gregorian, are used.
All right. So once again, the Gregorian dates for the ecclesiastical full moon and Easter are based all on what? What was put down in the tables in the papal bull, right? The Inter Gravissimus. All right. In that papal bull, whatever was placed in there, that's what they're going by. All right. So this goes back to Daniel 7:25, where he said that they would change times and laws, because this time change and law change has affected Christendom and it's affected the whole world. All right. And they've used preset times, not based on looking at anything outside, right? But based on what? Right. Based on the Jesuit mathematician who said he came up with a golden math number. Who gave him that number? Usually when they come up with such sciences, it's usually some demon, some angel, right? Fallen angel giving them said science. All right, so we're going to continue. All right, so we're going to go into what is a year. All right, and how many days are in a year. All right, so give us the definition of a year.
What is a year and how many days are in a year? This is the definition of a year. It's a noun, originally that which makes a complete cycle, and from verbal root meaning to do, make.
All right, so a year is what? That which makes a complete cycle. A year is a cycle. So when you hear year, think of cycle. When you hear year, think of a wheel. All right, that's what a year represents. All right, you want the physical representation of a year? It's a wheel. All right, it's a cycle. So a year is a cycle. What is a year? A cycle. All right, what is a cycle? Let's get what a cycle is.
Cycle, late Latin, cyclus, from Greek, kyklos, circle, wheel, any circular body. Also, circular motion, cycle of events.
All right, so a cycle. What is a cycle? A cycle is a wheel, a circle, any circular body, also circular motion, the cycle of events. All right, so a year is a cycle. A year is a wheel. Right? When you think of year, think of wheel. A year is a cycle. All right. A year is a circular motion. A year is a cycle of events. All right. So once again, your cycle of events should have what? We're going to see that these cycles have laws that are attached to them. All right. So the cycle of events has what? Laws attached to it. That's what we're going to see. All right. And we're looking at the diagram here. So a cycle has degrees. All right. A complete cycle has 360 degrees. All right. So a complete cycle of events is going to be 360. All right. So a year is technically 360. Right. Because its degrees is 360 to complete that cycle. All right. So a year is a cycle. A year is 360 days, technically. A year is 360 days. So where do they get the 5 days, or where do they get the 4 days that we're stating about? All right. Because a year, when we're understanding, is a cycle. And by definition, the law of it is what? That it's going to have 360 degrees. All right. Of motion through that time. All right. This is where we get the 360 days. All right, but where do we get the 4 days or the 5 days? So the 4 extra intercalary days, all right, we're going to get into that, all right, and they represent the 4 seasonal changes. So continue for us.
The 4 extra intercalary days are the 4 seasonal changes.
All right, and we see the box right there. It's the 4 different seasons, all right. This is what's added to ours. So we have a perfect understanding. The year is 360. The seasons are 4. So how do these seasons turn into 4 days and get added to our calendar? This is what would finalize what we're showing here. All right. So what happens on each day when the seasons change? All right. So we're showing you the equinox, which happens at the spring, all right, and the fall. Those are called equinoxes. We also have the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So these 2 events is the moon and the sun, or the sun is changing, right, its cycles on these days. So these days aren't counted. These days aren't counted as a part of the cycle. So they're counted as intercalary days, days that are added in for what? The change of the cycle. All right, 4 days added in because it's changing its cycle. It has nothing to do with the degrees, because we're seeing what? A year has 360 degrees. So this has nothing to do with the degrees or with the cycle of events. This has everything to do with something is paused real quick. All right. Because it's paused, there's 4 days added in, right? That give the sun and the moon its opportunity to move and change its cycle on those days and get back into its order, into its cycle. All right. So it's changing cycle that day to get back onto the cycle and continue. All right, so we have 4 days that's added for that. All right, and we're going to show that. All right, so it's 364, the 4 days added, or for the 4 seasonal changes. All right, and this divided by 7 gives you the 52 weeks. All right, so we're going to go to Jubilees once again, and we're going to take a look at what these 4 seasonal days mean as well, right, according to the scriptures. So give it to us.
All right. It's the book of Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 23. And on the new moon of the 1st month, and on the new moon of the 4th month, and on the new moon of the 7th month, and on the new moon of the 10th month are the days of remembrance, and the days of the seasons in the 4 divisions of the year. These are written and ordained as a testimony forever.
All right, so you're going to wonder, why does the whole world, right, pagans, everybody, they celebrate equinoxes, they celebrate solstices, all right? This was given to Noah. Noah is the father of all the nations. Noah was told what? On the new moon of the 1st month, so the 1st month of the year, which is, right, going to happen in March, right? There's a equinox, right? That happens. That what brings in the month. On the new moon of the 4th month, all right, there's another one. There's a summer solstice, all right? On the new moon of the 10th month, all right, what are they going into again? All right, we're going into the autumn, the fall. All right, another equinox. All right, and then in the new moon of the 10th month, all right, we're going into what? The winter solstice. All right, and the days of the seasons in the 4 divisions of the year. All right, so these days are represented as 4 seasons, all right, that divide the year. All right, and he told Noah when they occur and to watch out for them. All right, so this is why the whole world goes and celebrates the solstices and the equinoxes, because it was told to Noah, these 4 days out of the year, you got to celebrate these days. These are the changings of the seasons. These are the 4 intercalary days that are added to the 360 year cycle that complete the Most High's calendar. All right, so read that again for us.
All right. It's the book of Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 23. And on the new moon of the 1st month, and on the new moon of the 4th month, and on the new moon of the 7th month, and on the new moon of the 10th month are the days of remembrance, and the days of the seasons in the 4 divisions of the year. These are written and ordained as a testimony forever.
All right, so these 4 days are written and ordained as a testimony forever. These 4 days are the days that divide the season up. All right, and they're added to the 360 cycle that we're seeing, the cycle that represents the year. And this is why he said to make sure that you remember them, because once again, they're out of sync, right? So you're not going to know, right? Because a year naturally has 360, all right? But these things added are markers for the division of the seasons, all right? So continue for us.
Book of Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 24. And Noah ordained them for himself as feasts for the generations forever, so that they have become thereby a memorial unto him. And on the new moon of the first month, he was bidden to make for himself an ark. And on that day, the earth became dry, and he opened the ark and saw the earth. And on the new moon of the fourth month, the mouths of the depths of the abyss beneath were closed. And on the new moon of the seventh month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened, and the waters began to descend into them. And on the new moon of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen, and Noah was glad. And on this account he ordained them for himself as feasts for memorial forever. And thus they are ordained.
All right, so we're seeing there, all right, what happened. On the new moon of the first month, he was told to make an ark. So we're seeing that what? On New Year's Day, all right, on New Year's Day, God came to Noah and told him, make an ark. All right, so that's another thing we'll put on our calendar, New Year's Day. What happened on New Year's Day? That's the day God came to Noah and told him to make an ark on our New Year's in March. All right, and then it tells him again, right, and on that day, right, the earth became dry and he opened the ark and he saw the earth. So that's also the day the earth became dry and he opened it up and saw the earth. So that was a year, all right, so between that time. All right, so on the new year, he also opened it up and seen the earth was dry. All right, and on the new moon of the fourth month, all right, so on the new month, all right, the first day of the month of the fourth month, the mouths of the depths of the abyss of the beneath were closed. All right, so that's when he started to close up the waters at the bottom so that it no longer was going to overflow the earth. All right, and on the new month, the first day of the month of the seventh month, all the mouths of the abyss were open. All right, and the waters began to descend into them. All right, so the waters began to go back into them to let them off of the earth. All right, and on the new moon of the 10th month, once again, the tops of the mountains were seen and Noah was glad. So the water was digressing at that time. And once again, on the new year again, that's the time where he opened the ark again, and hey, everything is dry again. So it took a whole year for the cleansing out process, 364 days. And this is why he's ordaining them and making them so that we remember the whole year of events that transpired. All right, so give it to us again. Jubilees 6 and 32. At the bottom, right there.
This is the book of Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 32. And command you the children of Israel that they observe the years according to this reckoning, 364 days, and this will constitute a complete year. And they will not disturb a time from its days and from its feasts.
All right, so once again, telling the children of Israel to keep what? The day is 364. These will complete a year. They will not disturb no feast from its days. All right. They will not disturb its time from its days or from its feast. So they will not budge. And we're seeing that when you're following the moon, there's a constant budging that they had to add intercalary days that align the moon back because things are getting out of sync with the seasons. All right. And what's around them. So the Most High gave us this understanding, and we're seeing that the Catholic Church, all right, they haven't taken this understanding, even though they're saying they've taken up what? The position of Peter to carry and lead the church, right? But this is going back to Daniel 7:25 that said, no, this is the empire that is going to change times and laws. All right, so we're going to go to Genesis 1 and 16.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
All right, so God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So we're just going to take a look at this sentence structure here in the translation of the English. We put the Strong's Concordance there as well, so you can see the numbers beside them. And just before we look at the Strong's one, let's go back to the original one that we were reading and take a look out that he made at the bottom where it says he made the stars also, how the he made is in italics. All right, we're just going to look at, because this is key for when people are reading the scriptures, that they understand what the translator is doing here. All right, so when we look in the Strongs as well, any word that appears in the Hebrew, you're going to see the H number and the numbers beside it, because it's going to bring you to the original Hebrew number. So anywhere you don't see the H present beside the word, that's because the word doesn't really exist in the scripture. All right. And we're going to see here that the he made right there has been added in. That's why it has the italics. The reader is trying to tell you, hey, I'm adding this in to make you understand more. All right. The interpretator. All right. And the also as well. So the also doesn't have anything beside it as well. All right. It's only the night. All right. So night has the H3915 beside it. And the stars has the H3556 beside it. But the he made and the also, they don't have anything beside it, meaning that the interpreter added it in there because he thinks that, hey, these words will help you understand the sentence more. All right. And this is where a lot of falsehood comes in, because he's saying, hey, I understand, so let me help you understand. But he doesn't understand. All right. So now we all don't understand. All right. And this is why this person then created this book here. It's called Solar Sanity versus Lunar Lunacy in Calculating the Passover by Pastor Peter J. Peters. All right. And this pastor goes and he's going and he's looking at the calendar and he's looking and he's saying, hey, solar is sanity. All right. Lunar is lunacy. Why? Because you're going to the dates keep changing. So anyone who's following that, they're going to be in this lunacy. So he came up with the solar sanity versus lunar lunacy. All right. As a play on. And the whole thing about calculating Passover. And once again, he understands that, hey, light is blessing, Abib, Israelites, sons of light, sons of God. Those who are dealing with the darkness, all right, are on curses. They're dealing with the Nisan, Babylonian calendar, right? It's Jewish. They're sons of darkness, sons of Satan. And this is what he's showing you. And then once again, he's put the I hate your new moon festivals and your appointed feasts. Isaiah 1:14. Why? Because he's seeing that, hey, these people are operating on a different calendar. So we're just going to read an excerpt out of here. All right. So this is Solar Sanity versus Lunar Lunacy by Pastor Peter J. Peters.
All right. Solar Sanity versus Lunar Lunacy by Pastor Peter J. Peters. Judaizers have confused people into believing this passage is speaking of the sun and the moon, and the translators have not helped in the matter. All right. So let's first look to see what the passage is talking about. It is talking about lights in the firmament of heaven. Lights to give light upon earth, verse 15. But is the moon included in these lights?
All right, so it's speaking about the passage we were just speaking about. All right, Genesis 1:16. All right, he went again before to 15 where it speaks about the moon, but we're really honing down on verse 16, which he's going to get into. All right, so continue. Is this speaking about the moon when it speaks about the two great lights that are made, the two lights that are made? Is it speaking about the moon? That's what it's stating. All right, so continue for us.
Technically, the moon does not give light. It only reflects light.
All right, so even when we're going in Enoch, it's showing that, hey, the moon, right, it has its light. So it's getting its light actually from the sun. So once again, what they're saying can't be complete. So continue for us.
It only reflects light. The lights the Bible is talking about are divided into two categories, and each are identified. The greater light to rule the day, and the lesser to rule the night. The two lights are the sun and the stars. The moon is not mentioned here at all. There are two witnesses to the truth of this statement. The first witness is seen in the more correct translation of verse 16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, Genesis 1:16. Notice that the words he made are in italics, which means those words were not in the original text, but were added by the translators. There's another word that does not appear in the Bible text, though it is not in italics, and I do not know why it is not. And that word is also.
All right, so this is what they do. So once again, so they have the he made in italics. The same thing should apply to the also, but he's saying I don't know why the translator didn't put that in there either, right? To let you know, because once again, the reader who's reading is going to think all those words are in the original translation when it's not. All right, so continue for us.
This fact can be established by going to Strong's Concordance and looking up the word. When this is done, one finds there is no number next to the word. The index of Strong's Concordance that instructs one how to use the book states that if there is no number there, then that means the word did not appear in the original text. My question is, if it was not there, then why was it not italicized as was he made? Since the words he made and also are not in the text, let's read the verse without them. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, the stars.
All right, so when he's saying the lesser light to rule the night, it's just saying the stars. The stars is the lesser light that rules the night. All right, when we're going into the beginning, the moon was the same order as the sun. So she was supposed to be in the day. She wasn't for the night. All right, her original thing wasn't made for the night. All right, she was made to be in the day with the sun. All right, the stars were made for the night. All right, but once again, she fell, and this becomes we see that sometimes she'll be outside of the boundaries, right, into the day, because once again, it's not her rule that she has to remain in the night. All right, in the sun just overshadows her. All right, the sun brightens her out in the daytime. All right, and it does the same to the stars too. With the day star, you're able to see the day star, all right, which is called a morning star. All right, we're not talking about Tory Lanez. All right, but continue for us.
One dictionary's definition of a colon, of a colon is that the colon is used to separate clauses when the second expands the first. So the words, the stars, expand the meaning of greater and lesser lights. Another dictionary states that the phrase following the colon is tied by the colon to the subject prior to the colon. This means the lesser and greater lights are simply the stars, not the moon.
All right. So the lesser and greater light are the stars, not the moon. All right. So the stars are what's ruling in the day, all right, in the night, all right, and not the moon, all right. And this goes back into what happened with the moon. We showed that at the beginning. The moon fell off. The moon went off on a different cycle, and the Most High told to Enoch and then told to the rest not to follow the moon. The moon is not for what? The order of the night. It's not for the following of the calendar, these things here. All right, and because the moon's been going off, everyone's been following it. And this is where the guy here sees that, hey, they think because he made the moon to rule in these orders and certain things that they're supposed to be following the moon, right, for the light. And it's saying that it wasn't even spoken about here when it's speaking about the two great lights that are ruling. All right. That's where we showed that. All right. So explaining the Dead Sea Scroll calendar. So we're going to go into the Dead Sea Scroll calendar real quick and explain our calendar, the principles that surround what's inside the Dead Sea Scroll calendar. All right. So we're at the calendars of the Dead Sea Scroll sect.
Mm-hmm. This is a calendars of the Dead Sea Scroll sect by Edward L. Cohen. This is the Hebrew calendar from Ezra to modern times. No matter what period of time, the Jews were tied to the calendar. In fact, it is said that if the Jews did not have their calendar with the festivals tied to it, there would be no reason for their existence.
All right, so what is it showing you? That the Jews are tied to their calendar, all right? The Jews are tied to their calendar. The Christians are supposed to be tied to their calendar. Why? Because if the Jews or the Christians don't have their calendar with the festivals tied to it, what's the reason for your existence? Because your whole existence from God brings you out in the first month is that, hey, I brought you out. These are the things that you're celebrating. This is what you should celebrate. All right. So without celebrating your calendar or the things on your calendar, there is no existence for even those people. Because in the same very month, in the new year, that's the month he's telling you, I brought you out and I freed you from these things. All right. So your whole independence on him is based on the calendar, is based on all of that and all the dates. All right. So you take away their calendar, you're taking away their whole existence, their whole memory, their whole history on what's going on, because God has aligned it up periodically, as we're seeing with the dates of the year. All right, so continue for us.
The reason is simple. The exodus from Egypt, the giving of the Torah in the Essene calendar, the new year are the main reasons for their continuance. These are inexorably linked to the calendar. From Ezra, from the 5th century BCE and continuing until approximately the 4th century, the calendar was decided upon by the Sanhedrin, the 71 members of the High Court. It met in Jerusalem in its earlier days and decided on a new month at the time of the crescent of the new moon.
All right. So the calendar, it was decided by men that were in the Sanhedrin, and they would have to come outside, visibly see it, and then calculate it in. What we're seeing that the Pope change is what? No longer is there Sanhedrin that have to go outside and calculate. They're like, you know what? We'll just put it on tables, and hey, we'll calculate it based on what we think is on these tables, and no one's gonna go outside and actually look at and say, hey, we've seen it on this day directly. All right, so if you're looking at those dates and thinking they went out there and looked at it and seen it directly, then you're making a mistake, because they're on tables. All right, the Sanhedrin, or the Jewish people, they did that. All right, the Catholic Church changed that. They just started imputing dates based on their tables, based on the numbers of their calculation. All right, so continue for us.
This is the two Essene, the Dead Sea Scroll calendars, part 3. Though the Essene calendars may have differed from that of the other Jews, even of the same time period, nevertheless, the observance of the laws was dependent upon the calendar. Josephus, a much relied upon historian of their times, unfortunately does not mention what they used for a calendar. So we will have to look in their documents for this aspect, for a study of ancient calendars. As for the calendar, the Essenes actually had 2 of them. The first one of them from the scrolls was a lunar one.
All right, so they had a lunar one. You're gonna see, why do they have a lunar one? Because they're following what's going on. On our calendar, we have the Gregorian one. If you find our camp and come in our community, you'd be like, oh, we following the Gregorian? No, we're in their realm, so we're watching and we're on their time too, mixed with our time. All right, so even on our calendar, it's 2 mixed into 1. All right, but continue for us.
The first one from the scrolls was a lunar one. It had 354 days. As we indicated, the moon goes around the earth in approximately 21 and a half days. That is why we get this peculiar number of days. Since the holidays came from the second one, not much else is gleaned from the 354-day calendar. The second is much more complicated. It had 364 days and was solar. Since 3 times 354 plus 30 equals 3 times 364, it is thought that an extra month of 30 days was added to the lunar one every 3 years, at the end of the 3 years, to make up for the difference to keep everything normal.
All right, which we were explaining that's what people who follow the moon does, because the moon each year is 10 days off. So if you go to the 4th year, it's 30 days off. So everyone who was following that calendar would add 30 days every 4 years. All right. But now, because the Pope came up with the golden number, you only have to worry about a leap year. All right. Or else you would have classmates and things that's telling you, hey, I was born in a month that only comes around, every 4 years, instead of a day that only comes every 4 years. All right. So once again, by the calculations that they've added in, that's what changed the 30-day leap year rule. On the leap year, 30 days would have been added in. A whole new month would have been added in, but now it's only 1 day. All right, and they thought that of a great computation, that the person who came up with that had a great science behind it. But continue for us.
We now know that the solar 364 calendar was the mainstay, with the lunar solar 354 calendar playing a much lesser role. The let me see, indicates that the Essenes kept track of the lunisolar only to point out errors in case they would eventually be in charge in Jerusalem. A 364-day calendar. Okay, it cuts off there. Okay. Yaden found evidence that the same calendar was used by those at Masada, thus perhaps linking the two sects. In fact, while excavating, he found the Book of Jubilees, which will be discussed later in its original Hebrew text.
All right, so they found the Jubilees. We've been going through the Jubilees to show these things. And this is what they're showing to us about what they found, all right, at the Dead Sea, in the Qumran caves and in the Dead Sea Scrolls about them and their calendars. All right, but continue for us.
7 times 52 equals 364. This is very convenient because of the 7-day week, of which Saturday is very important. The first month began on day 4, which was Wednesday, because the moon and sun were created on the 4th day of creation.
All right, so the moon and sun, once again, when we go into creation, the sun and the moon were placed in the sky on the 4th day. When the sun and the moon is placed in the sky on the 4th day, we now have your first month and your first day of the month about to happen on the 4th day of the week. So that's what comes on the new year, all right? It's the first day of the month, all right? It's the first month, but the 4th day of the week, because God put the sun and the moon in the sky on the 4th day of the week. It also lets somebody know that, hey, there's a God, because why would your new year start on the 4th day of the week? Why wouldn't it start on the first day of the week? Everything would start at the same time. But once again, with us reading the Bible, he didn't place anything in the sky until the 4th day. All right. And the calendar is based on what? The movement of the sun and the moon. So you cannot have a calendar before those days because there is no movement of sun and moon yet. All right. So this is what we're understanding. All right. So that makes the new year fall on the 4th day of the week, because on the 4th day of the week, God put the sun and the moon in the sky. All right. And on the first day of the first month, it happened on the 4th day of the week, Wednesday, in our world. All right. Or in the Roman world, I should say. All right. So once again, that's why Wednesday, the new year happens on Wednesday. So there'll be some people who follow the Hebrew calendar or follow the Dead Sea calendar, but in their mind, they're going to think that naturally started on what? The first day of the week. All right. And that's why some people, we could mention Gathering of Christ Church, GOCC, their calendar, they're starting it on the first day of the week, not understanding the principles that God started the calendar on the 4th day when he put the sun and the moon in the sky. All right. And on the first month, all right, on the first day of the month, it happened on the 4th day of the week, which on the Roman calendar is what? Wednesday. All right. But continue for us.
Don't forget that these Essenes were the priests of the Jews and were very observant. Everything had to go by the Old Testament Pentateuch. The waving of the barley omer is the next ceremony after Passover mentioned in the Bible. Their interpretation is that it must be on the day after the Sabbath after Passover. Accordingly, it falls on 1/26. After 50 days, there is a festival of weeks or first fruits of wheat. It is called Shavuot and is now taken to be the anniversary of the giving of the Torah. In the days of the Essenes, it was the day 3:15. In current times, it is 3:6. And the first waving of the barley omer is now 1/16.
All right. And all those dates can be looked at on our calendar, and you can see all the festival days that it's speaking about as we've put them, right? They naturally fall into their proper order on those days now, all right, which we all celebrate. But continue for us.
We, previous to the foundation of the Essene group, there are 2 other books which might have had an influence on the calendar. First Enoch and Jubilees, which may have been written in the 2nd century BCE. In First Enoch, we have exactly the 2 calendars used by the Essenes. The astronomical book in the Jubilees, we have only the 364-day calendar. In any detailed study of the Essene calendar, these would be examined. In essence, the Jubilee calendar was the one used by the Qumran sect. Surveys of this can be found in, I think that's the cave number.
Yeah, those are the cave numbers. Yeah.
Although no mention of the intercalation is mentioned, and in the latter, the author notes.
All right. So once again, so they're showing that what the calendars can be found in First Enoch and Jubilees. First Enoch shows the moon one, which we are showing, and it shows the solar one. He tells us not to follow the moon one because it goes off, but to follow the solar one. And in Jubilees, they keep telling us about the solar one, and now they're telling us what? Follow the solar one, don't follow the moon one. All right. And then they're telling us now that the Essenes that they found, right, in their caves, they're following what? The one that's found in Jubilees. And that's what we're following. When we're seeing the Catholic Church or the churches around us, what are they following? They're following the one what? That was associated with the moon. All right, or it's associated through the Pope now, who's used the golden number to unite what? The vernal equinox and the following of the moon together. All right, so we're just going to take a look at this next excerpt real quick, and it's just going to show us what our first month of a Bible month will look like technically on a calendar. All right.
All right. This is the Dead Sea Scrolls, calendars of the priestly courses, commentary. 12 fragmentary manuscripts from Cave 4, paleographically dated to the late 2nd century BCE, present in various forms the peculiar solar calendar constructed in 6-year sequences of the Qumran community. Their year consisted of 12 months of 30 days each, plus 4 extra days added to each of the 4 seasons.
All right. So once again, right, they show you the solar year, all right, constructed. All right. The year consisted of 12 months, 30 days each, plus 4 extra days added, like we said, for the 4 seasons. All right. This right here, that picture right there is the what looks like for the first month. All right. So the first month, that's what it looks like for the first month. All right, and we'll see that where is it going to start? It's going to start on the Wednesday. So in your week of creation, that's when it started. That's how the first year of the first month of the year is going to look. It's going to start on the Wednesday. All right, on the Wednesday, it has those 2 crosses there. Why? Because it's what?
Just make sure, is it screen sharing?
Yeah, it's screen share. Yeah, let's see it here. All right. So it says the first month of the year in the 6-year calendar, bold number is a feast. So when you see bold, that's a feast. So the 14th, you look at the 14th. What is that? That is the Passover. All right. Happening. About to happen there on that day. All right. And then we see what? The 26th, which is what? On our calendar this year, we're seeing that's what? That's actually the 24th on our calendar this year. All right. That's the 24th day. All right. And that's when we're going to have what? We're actually having, all right, they would have waving of sheaf there, but now we're having the Palm Sunday. That's when Christ is coming in on the Palm Sunday, but they had waving of the sheaf in the Hebrew times. All right, but now Palm Sunday is there, or Palm Sunday. All right, and this is what it will look like for the first month of God's month. All right. It's going to start where? Because the first 3 days, right? The first day is there. God is making things. And then on the Wednesday there, or the 4th day, he puts the sun and the moon in the sky. And that starts our calendar. Like I said, right? The first day of the first month starts on the 4th day of the week. And then it continues 30 days. And then it continues on for the year. And that's how it's been looking from all creation. Because once again, we cannot forget God was making things on other days before he put the sun and the moon in place. So all creation, our months is going to constantly look like that instead of it starting on the first day because of what God did. And it's a signal to what us for us to remember that God really put this in place here. That's what comes, it's here and out of place, right? Where other people, they would naturally put it back in place, forgetting that God, what? He paused it for a moment, knowing that people would think that what? Everything came out of evolution and all of that. All right, so we're just going to go to, once again, that a pope actually confirms this. So after the pope, they changed the times, right, and the calendar. There's a pope that actually comes on the scene and is confirming the Essene calendar, right? We're going to later what happens with this pope. But we're just going to take a look at the Pope in his declaration on that he has an understanding that the calendar that the Jews are supposed to be using is the Essene calendar. All right.
All right. This is Pope Benedict XVI confirms Christ observed the Essene calendar dates. Mass of the Lord's Supper, homily of His Holiness Benedict XVI, Basilica of St. John, Holy Thursday, April 5th, 2007. According to John, Jesus died on the cross at the very moment when the Passover lambs were being sacrificed in the temple. The death of Jesus and the sacrifice of the lambs coincided. However, this means that he must have died the day before Easter and could not, therefore, have celebrated the Passover meal in person. This, at any rate, is how it appears. According to 3 synoptic gospels, the Last Supper of Jesus was instead a Passover meal into whose traditional form he integrated the innovation of the gift of his body and blood.
All right. So what are they showing you? They're showing you what everyone celebrates. What they celebrate the Last Supper, or they think the Last Supper is happening on Friday when it didn't happen on the Friday, right? They're going to show you the Last Supper happened on the Wednesday. All right. A lot of incidents happen that day that bring it to the Thursday, and then they have a whole discussion on bringing him to Korah, the Sanhedrin, that this starts now brings it into the Friday. All right, but his meal that he had was on the Wednesday with the Essenes. All right, and that's where you get the Last Supper, or the Last Supper picture that you see everyone will so famously post around. Or make fun of, or people have their own little, hey, it's me and my friends and we're at the table like the Last Supper. All right, we'll continue for us.
This contradiction seemed unsolvable until a few years ago. The majority of exegetes were of the opinion that John was reluctant to tell us the true historical date of Jesus' death, but rather chose a symbolic date to highlight the deeper truth. Jesus is the new true lamb who poured out his blood for us all.
All right. So once again, they couldn't understand why there's a Passover celebrating with his disciples, and then days later, there's a Passover celebrating with the Jews. They couldn't understand what was going on. But what we're seeing here is the two calendars is finally colliding with each other with this series of events. All right. But continue for us.
In the meantime, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran has led us to a possible and convincing solution which, although it is not yet accepted by everyone, is a highly plausible hypothesis. We can now say that John's account is historically precise.
All right, so he's saying that the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran has led them to a possible and convincing solution. So now that they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found the calendar, like, hey, we found the solution to what's connecting these dates, what's connecting Christ's Last Supper and the date that he got crucified on, which the Jews say was coming up to their Passover. All right, so continue for us.
Jesus truly shed his blood on the eve of Easter at the time of the immolation of the lambs. In all likelihood, however, he celebrated the Passover with his disciples in accordance with the Qumran calendar. Hence, at least one day earlier, he celebrated it without a lamb, like the Qumran community, which did not recognize Herod's temple and was waiting for the new temple.
All right, so the Pope came, and this Pope was saying, guess what he said? He said here, let's go back up, all right? Where did he say that here? In the meantime, all right, right here. So he said, in the meantime, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran has led us to a possible and convincing solution, which although is not yet accepted by everyone. So he's like, yo, he's found this out, but everyone, they're not accepting this. They're still not accepting this truth of the calendar. But here we have the popes who changed the calendar, who's now saying that they're using the Essene calendar. So we should be changing the calendar of the world then, because the Pope, the very popes who changed it, one Pope has came out and said, hey, this is the calendar Christ is following, everyone's following. So why isn't he changing back the calendar for Christendom? Right, you're going to see that later that year, that Pope steps down. All right, so this is, after this Pope does this, he actually steps down and this is the first time a stepping down has happened with a pope in how much years, or it's never happened like that. All right, and this is how we bring in Francis we see now. So this is the last man that was here, and this person we see clearly some understanding was coming to him of the Essenes, that he even understood that Christ was following the Essenes, his disciples were following the Essenes, the calendar, and then out of nowhere he steps down, and this is how we have Pope Francis who now comes in, and he's been replaced since. All right, but this Pope once again, and he called himself Benedict, and you see that the name that he calls himself by is also a person who was following the Essene way. So it was a saint who was following the Essene way, and he came out with a book, right? And it was ordering his community like the Essenes. So this Pope here found out about the Essenes, and I think his heart was being changed about it. And once again, this changed the trajectory of things, and now he had to leave out of that order. He had to leave from what he was doing. All right, either he gave it up because he was, brought to this, all right, or someone forced him out. But for the first time in all history, a pope left and vacated the seat. All right, so we're just going to go into some information about the Roman calendar, all right, and then we're almost finishing this off.
All right, the Roman calendar. Attributed to Romulus himself, the Roman calendar originally was determined by the cycles of the moon and the seasons of the agricultural year.
All right, so this Roman calendar, this is before the Gregorian. This is just their regular, all right, this is their Roman calendar. We're just looking at their first principles of their calendar. The Roman calendar, once again, was based on the lunar, month, or the lunar calendar again, which is bringing everything out of line. All right, but continue for us.
Beginning in March in the spring and ending in December with the autumn planting.
All right, so their year was beginning in March and it ended in December. All right, so their year began in March and it ended in December. Continue for us.
The year then was 10 months long and had 6 months of 30 days and 4 of 31. A total of 304 days.
All right, so their year only had 10 months, all right, which totaled 304 days. And you're going to see, so between March and December, that was their year. And from December to March, they actually had a pause. So they just didn't calculate that time. So they looked at that time, but they didn't add it into their calculator. They were saying, hey, this is the time for taxes, for doing this. So it wasn't a part of their calendar. All right, so their calendar paused from December all the way to March. And that's what comes, we see what we see now, where you have March and then you see all the December, which is 10, and then it goes into the January, February, and then it's back into counting it again for you because those months weren't counted, and then they start counting them, but they left the same numbers of the months there, which now this is what's fooling everybody. All right, so December, which is D-set, all right, D-set, that's French, right? D-set, D-oui. Yes, D-set. See, I remember something. My teachers should be proud of me. All right, D-set, D-oui. D-oui, 1, 2, right? All right, but D-set, all right, which is December, which is 10. All right, so they ended their year there, and they still do it right now. All right, but they still calculating the time for you, but their year really ends at that time, and then, right, they started back up in March. That's what they were doing before. Right, so
I think Deca goes back to the Latin to Deca. Yeah,
okay.
D-E-C-A.
All right, but continue for us.
Yeah. So 10 lunar months actually comprise about 295 days, since each month began and ended with the new moon. That day would have belonged to both the new month and the old, and must have been counted twice. The remnants of this early calendar can still be recognized in the numbered names for quintilis, July, and sextilis, which is August. September, October, November, and December, the 2 months of winter, when there was no work in the fields, were not counted. Cato, for example, speaks of payment for olives being due in the 10th months, the agriculture. Yeah.
All right, so once again, so they left those months out because they were saying after those months, that was tax time. They're like, we don't even count in those days. You need to be worried about your tax, getting your tax ready for Caesar up into March, because March is what? March is when everybody, the tax, everything returns. So from December, they're like, yo, don't worry about days and stuff. Worry about getting your tax in order for Caesar. That's what you need to worry about. All right. So from December to March, they were gearing up their taxes. And you'll see in this world, from January comes in, the bosses are already what? They're already calculating all their books leading up into March. All right. So that's how the Romans used their time. All right. So they were more focused on, hey, you getting your tax and the tax being due, the payment for the taxes and all of that. All right. So the 2 months of winter, when there was no work in the fields, they were not counted. All right. So once again, they were speaking of payment for olives being due in the 10 months. All right. And once again, those months weren't used. People weren't working in the winter in the fields. Neither were they counting those days. They were just getting all their numbers and things in order for tax. So you're going to see in tax season, you have to have a little break. So the employers usually take from January to February to get everyone's tax ready for them, to get it ready for you for March. All right. So anyone who does taxes, you should know that, hey, March is really when you're looking for your tax. Your employer is going to send it to you at some time at the end of January, right, to the beginning in February, right? And you should have it by March to go do your taxes. So continue for us.
According to Livy, it was Numa Pompilius, the second king of Rome, who divided the year into 12 lunar months. This is from History of Rome, chapter 1, verse 19. 50 days, says Censorinus, were added to the calendar, and a day taken from each month of 30 days to provide for the 2 winter months. January and Februaris, which is February, both of which had 28 days. The natal day, which was 20. This was a lunar year of about 354 days, but because of the Roman superstition about even numbers, an additional day was added to January to make the calendar 355 days long.
All right, and we want to stop it here. So once again, so they didn't use, right, January and February. Those were winter months, all right? So they actually paused their year. So their year stopped at December, right? They paused it January, February to get their taxes and everything ordered, and then they celebrated the new year in March, all right? But when they were trying to now calculate that time for the 2 months and add days to it, all right, and they were adding it back up, and they were coming up to the calculation of 354, the Romans have a superstition. So I was looking into the Romans do not like even numbers. So when they come across an even number, they add another day to it to make it uneven. Right? So they're odd, right? So the calendar of the moon, which is 354, they changed to 355. Now that explains to us why our calendar 364 is changed to 365. And they brought that mathematician, they're like 364. Romans don't like even numbers. So change that to what? 365.25. You see what we're saying here. All right. So they first did it to their original calendar, which was 354. They add an extra day to January to make it longer, to make it 365 days long. 355 days long. All right. And we're going to see clearly they did the same thing to the Enochian calendar because it's supposed to be 364, but it's 365. So Romans have a superstition about even numbers. I was looking up the history of it. Didn't want to go too much into that, but they have a superstition about even numbers. All right. And they use odd numbers. All right. And this, I was even wondering too, like maybe that's why they use the number 9/11, because they're two odd numbers, but these two odd numbers, they even make an even number for that time, for a second.
Even March 21st, the 21, the odd number.
Mm-hmm. All right, so continue for us.
All right.
I think we're on where are we at now?
Auspiciously.
Oh, yeah.
Auspiciously, each month now had an odd number of days. Mauritius, March, and Mawis, May. Quintilis, July, and October continued to have 31. The other months, 29, except for February, which had 28 days. Considered unlucky, it was devoted to rites of purification, febura, an expiation appropriate to the last month of the year. Although these legendary beginnings attest to the venerability of the lunar calendar of the Roman Republic, its historical origin probably was the publication of a revised calendar by the Decemvirari in 450 BC as part of the 12 Tables, Rome's first code of law.
All right. So we're seeing here that they even count February a bad month because it has 28 days. It was the one month that they had. They're like, yo, it still has even numbers in there. February's a bad day. So they put what? Devoted rites of purification and all of that in February because they're like, yo, that day is a bad day, or that month is a bad month because it's even numbers in that month. We need to, bless more or purify more in that month. So just once again, the way the Romans were going into the Roman mind, they don't like even numbers, and this caused them to change that glorious number that was given to Enoch, 364, that's supposed to start our year, to make sure that your birthday every year, if it's on Monday and it's the 14th, every year is going to be Monday on the 14th, right? And this was how Rome came, and Rome's first codes of law was changing. This is their laws that changed the calendar, and it first changed the lunar calendar from 354 to 355. All right, and then they eventually changed the solar calendar from 364 to 365. All right, so continue for us.
A Brief History of the Calendar by David Harper, PhD. The Romans were very superstitious. They regarded odd numbers as lucky and even numbers as unlucky. And so all the months except February had an odd number of days. March, May, quintilis, and October had 31. February had 28, and the remainder had 29. This gave 355 days, roughly equal to 12 lunar months.
All right, so once again, they despise even numbers, all their months, and you're wondering why these months like this. All right, they're like, yo, they can't have even numbers in the months. All right, February has it. Right, and didn't they, when they give when's Black History Month?
February.
All right, so they gave Black History Month in the month that they say is the curse month. All right, according to their time.
And the shortest too.
Yeah, and the shortest too. It's the even time. All right.
Go by this month quick.
Yeah. And the coldest. Yeah. So they didn't even want to calculate time in those months, January and February. They're like, you know what? Don't even count that. Just pause the year and then start the year back again. So you had basically 2 months of pause. They didn't even count the time or calculate it. It's just, all right, pause it till the vernal equinox and all of that. All right, so we're just going to look at the table now. All right, so we're understanding. We have a clear understanding why they changed they're adding a day to the calendar. They don't like odd numbers. They don't like even numbers. They like odd numbers. All right, we're just taking a look at now the spring equinox, some dates there, going back to where they had it, that it was operating in at these times when it's actually being calculated. All right, we have the March 16th, March 17th, and we'll see that if we look at our calendar, it's always going to fall on the week where these dates is kind of occurring. All right, but it could come out of line. So it could be the 13th into this, but this 16th, 17th is lining up in our very same week, all right, of equinoxes here. All right. And also what we have to know, because this year as well, our date is lining up with the actual date that they're celebrating. So you're going to see again that they wanted to celebrate the Jews' Passover based on these tables. All right. And based on them looking up the full moon. All right. And the full moon, once they see that full moon, is going to happen the very same Sunday. But the reason why ours is starting, because we actually watch the equinox, which happens right in the middle of the month, and we catch it on the exact 14th day. All right. Our Passover, and then we catch the Passover week, because our Passover is on the Wednesday, and then we know the Jews their days are in line, so they're waiting for the weekend of that same week to go into their Passover, and we're waiting on that weekend because we know they're waiting on that weekend, and that's the weekend that they crucified Christ on their Passover. All right. So it aligns this year because once again, the Pope, they're not watching the vernal equinox. All right. They're only watching what? they're only watching the full moon of the Jews. All right. When that happens, it was 7 days until the Passover of theirs. All right. This year, it's lining up perfectly because once again, we always is following it from 14 days above, but they're only following it watching the moon. So they're not counting 14 days, but it's still aligning with ours because the moon that the Jews would be watching that would line it up on our week where all the events happen has happened. That makes them say the immediate Sunday that it happens, that's the Sunday that they're watching. All right, that's how we all fall on the same date because our date is on the date where ours is on the week. Ours is always going to be on the week where Christ was crucified because our week is stationary. The Essenes is stationary. And when it happened, it was happening at the same time the Essenes was. So usually it could be totally separated. But when Christ came and he died, both calendars, came in line on the same week where one is happening on the Wednesday and one is happening further. And this year we're seeing that happen. All right. So lining it back up to how it was supposed to be, where the Essenes are following theirs and the world is following theirs, and it all lines up on the same day to create these two different societies who have two different calendars, and somehow we're colliding on the same week. All right, it's happening all over again. So we're just going to go into why there are 7 days and break down the 7 days, and we'll be closing out. We've got about 20 more minutes in this. All right, so why are there 7 days in a week? So we're just going to break down the rest of the principles to add. Why are there 7 days in the week?
How many days did it take God to make the heavens and the earth? Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made.
All right, so God made the earth in 6 days and he rested on the seventh day. That's why we have 7 days in the week, all right, because they represent the creation week. All right, so the 7 days represent creation week. All right, continue for us.
The Most High made the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. The week of creation is 7 days. When were the heavenly lights placed in the firmament? Genesis chapter 1, verse 16. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day.
All right, so God, once again, there's 7 days in the week because there's 7 days in the creation week. All right. Why do we start the year on the 4th day? All right, because we see when did God put the lights in the firmament? He put it in on the 4th day. All right, so the lights that control the calendar were placed in the firmament, which is the sky, on the 4th day of the week, starting the calendar on the 4th day of the week. So this is why we start the calendar on the 4th day of the week. This is why there's 7 days in a week. All right, so we're just going to go to tracking of the week now. All right, so we're going to go to the next page. And the tracking of the week. So we want to know, how can we assure that this is the same 7-day alignment that God showed us in the beginning? All right, so we're just going to go to some excerpts, all right, and quotes from people who's been tracking the 7-day, the history of the 7-day week.
All right, tracking the 7th day of the week. One of the most striking collateral confirmations of the Mosaic history of the creation is a general adoption of the division of time into weeks, which extends from the Christian states of Europe to the remote shores of Hindustan, and has equally prevailed among the Hebrews, Egyptians, Chinese, Greeks, Romans, and northern barbarians, nations some of whom had little or no communication with others, and were not even known by name to the Hebrews.
All right, so once again, they're going through history by going to anybody: Hebrews, Egyptians, Chinese, Greeks, Romans, barbarians, even people they had little to no communication with. All were on the same week. Why? Because it was given to Noah. Noah's the father of all nations. All nations got this information at some point in time. That's why they're all aligned with the same stuff. All right, continue for us.
In the official League of Nations report on the reform of the calendar, published at Geneva, August 17, 1926, are the following representative statements by noted astronomers. The week has been followed for thousands of years and therefore has been hallowed by immemorial use. This is Anders Donner, the report. Donner had been a professor of astronomy at the University of Helsingfors. I have always hesitated to suggest breaking the continuity of the week, which without a doubt is the most ancient scientific institution bequeathed to us by antiquity. This is Edward Ballard. Ballard was a director of the Pris Observatory.
All right. So once again, he's showing that, this is the most ancient scientific institution bequeathed to us by antiquity. Why? Because the week and the creation of the week is in the beginning of creation. All right. And they're seeing that it's still been there. So this is the most oldest scientific institution that's ever been given to them. Right. The week. Because God starts the week off in creation. All right. But continue for us.
All right. As to question 1, I can only state that in the connection with the proposed simplification of the calendar, we have had occasion to investigate the results of the works of specialists in chronology, and we have never found one of them that has ever had the slightest doubt in continuity of the week cycle since long before the Christian era. As to question 2, there has been no change in our calendar in the past centuries that has affected any way the cycle of the week. This is James Robertson, personal letter dated March 12, 1932. Dr. Robertson was director of the American Ephemeris Navy Department, U.S. Naval Observatory, Washington, D.C.
All right. So once again, all these sources showing that there's been no change in the calendar regarding the cycle of the week. When you're talking about the months, the years, we went through plenty of history to show you the differences. Other people have differences. But when we're talking about the week structure, that has never been changed by man. All right. So you can be confident that we're on the same weekly cycle that's always been here. All right. And we're only concerned about making sure we're following the calendar cycle correctly. All right. So how many hours are in a day? So we just want to clarify this, too, because in our times now, everyone's not clear on how many hours are in an actual day. All right. So we're going to go back to the Bible and let it clarify us. We're at John 11 and 9.
It's the book of St. John, chapter 11, verse 9. Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in the day?"
All right. So there's 12 hours in a day. That's what Christ asked them. Aren't there 12 hours in a day? All right. But if you ask somebody right now, how much hours in a day? There's 24 hours in a day. All right. There's 12 hours in a day, technically. All right. When you start the year off fresh, because we know that each day you're losing time, sunlight and all of that. All right. But technically there's 12 hours. All right. There's 12 hours of night. It takes 24 hours to get to a next day. A day is not 24 hours. It just takes 24 hours to get to the next day. Because why? You're going to have to pass the 12 hours a day first. Then you're going to have to pass the 12 hours a night. And then that took you 24 hours to get to the next day. But a day is not 24 hours because we're going to see what a day is. All right. But first, we're going to just calculate the first hour. What's the first hour? All right. The first hour is from sunrise, usually happening 6 a.m. All right. Or in the winter, it's happening at 7 a.m. You can't really tell it's happening at 7 a.m. over here because they put in the daylight saving time and it pushes to 8 a.m. for you. So you're like, oh, 8 a.m. outside. But it's really 7 a.m. So it's either in the summer, it's starting at 6 a.m. or we're getting to 7 a.m. And even sometimes it starts at 5 a.m. when it gets when there's more sun outside than light. Than night. All right. So the first hour is usually 6 a.m. Second hour 7 a.m. Third hour 8 a.m. Fourth hour 9 a.m. Fifth hour 10 a.m. Sixth hour 11 a.m. Seventh hour 12 p.m. All right. Sorry, these are AMs. Yeah, 12 p.m. Right, the 7th hour 12 p.m. The 8th hour 1 p.m. 9th hour 2 p.m. All right, the 10th hour 3 p.m. 11th hour 4 p.m. and the 12th hour about 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. Right, and you're gonna see that when you're in the islands and places like that, right, you see that by 6 p.m. it's dark. All right, these places is dark. It's nighttime now. So this is how it was in these places. All right, so it's 12 hours that give you the time of day. And especially when you're not in the Western culture that lightens up the whole place. You're not going to be doing nothing in the nighttime. All right. So a lot of times in the culture, in the Bible, God stops working or there's no work being happening because it was impossible to work. It's too dark in those places. All right. So the day has 12 hours in the day. All right. 12 hours for the night. It takes 24 hours to get to the next day, but a day itself is not 24 hours. All right. But if you go to school, the school will tell you a day is 24 hours. All right. So we're going to go to we're going to go to how do we divide time? All right. How do we divide the night time? All right. So how do we divide the 12 hours that we have in the night? All right. We're going to go to Psalm 63 and 6.
It's the book of Psalms, chapter 63, verse 6. When I remember thee upon my bed and meditate on thee in the night watches.
All right. So here we have David saying, hey, when I remember thee upon my bed and meditate on thee in the night watches. So David gave an understanding that in the night time, right, there's night watches. All right. And we're just going to go, I forgot what translation that was again. BBBE, Bible. What was that again? Oh, basic English. All right, yeah. Bible in basic English. All right, so Bible in basic English translation. Psalm 63, 5.
It's the book of Psalm 63, verse 5. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise thee with joyful lips. When I remember thee upon my bed and meditate on thee in the night watches.
All right, so once again, remembering God on your bed, meditating on him in the night watches. So we're going to go into what are night watches. All right, night watches equals nighttime. So when you hear night watches, consider that nighttime. All right, so we're going to go to the Concise Bible Dictionary. It's going to tell us what is night watches.
All right, this is night watches out of the Concise Bible Dictionary. There were with the Israelites 3 night watches. From sunset about 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The middle watch from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and from 2 a.m. till sunrise.
All right. So the Hebrew Israelites, they had 3 night watches. All right. Which was from sunset. All right. Which is about 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So 4-hour intervals. All right. And then from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and then 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. All right. That was how they divided up the nighttime. So the night was divided into 3 portions. They didn't just calculate it as hours like how we do the daytime. And there's a reason for this. Why? Because you're supposed to watch in the night. This is why it's called night watch. And we're gonna get into this understanding on the night watch. All right, so continue for us.
All right. The first night watch, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Second night watch, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And the third night watch, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Under the Romans, there were 4 night watches, agreeing with the changes of the Roman guards, each being of 3 hours' duration, from sunset to sunrise. They were sometimes called evening, midnight, and cockcrowing, and morning.
All right. So the Romans had 4 night watches. So the Romans divided their times up into 4, and they were broken up into 3-hour intervals. All right. So 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., 9 p.m. to 12 a.m., 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., 3 a.m. to 6 p.m. All right. So what does it mean to watch? All right. So let's get that.
What does it mean to watch? Watch, verb, from Old English, waken. Keep watch, be awake. To guard, someone or some place. Stand guard.
All right. So night watch. These is to stand guard. So to watch means to keep watch. All right. Not be awake. You're going to have to sleep, but it's to stand guard. Just to stand guard at these times. Why? Because the night is represented by evil, deception, all of that. So this is why you got to watch in the night. Nighttime is not a time for you to just be totally unconscious. Because now you'll be following what people are in the world are doing when ignorance is out, falsehood is out. They're like, all right, I'm asleep. They're not awake to it. All right. So by us defeating that principle, because we know that everything in the physical has a representation of the unseen, the spiritual. So by you saying, hey, you know what? I'm not a person who's just totally unconscious in the night. I don't just go to sleep, all right? I go and do what? Church work, something important. Because what are you trying to, when we're going into the world to tell people, hey, you know, you should read the Bible. They're in their nighttime, spiritual nighttime. And you're telling them they should do some work while they're in their nighttime. But when you're in the nighttime, you're not defeating that by saying, all right, it's nighttime now. I'm different than people who just sleep in the nighttime. I actually pick up my Bible and I actually do physical work to show I'm not just a sleeper in the nighttime. I'm doing actual work. I'm doing actual studies. Because if you don't, guess what you're like? You're like the people, very people you're trying to say, hey, wake up. You know, you need to come to the church. You need to do this. Okay, tell me what you do in the nighttime then.
It's quiet in the nighttime too. It's easier to study.
Yeah.
It's less commotion going on. Things are more calm.
All right, so this is the difference. How can you then go and tell somebody else outside, right, do this? Yeah, because you're doing. See, this is why it's easy when you're able to see what the other person's doing. But God, now look at you. Do the principle now that I'm showing you. All right, stay up in the night to show that you're different, because you know that what? Everything physical is a representation of the spiritual. All right, so if you're physically asleep all the time at the night, then what is he gonna say? All right, this is why he goes to. Let me go to it. I think it's 1 Thessalonians 5. Yeah, 1 Thessalonians 5. Let's go there real quick. It's not in there. Let's go get 1 Thessalonians 5 for us.
Apologize 1 second here.
1 Thessalonians 5. We're going to go back there, but I just want to emphasize it right now. All right. And start at verse 4. And you can go to verse 7. Oh, no, but verse 8, actually.
It's the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 4. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief.
All right. So what is it saying? You are not in darkness. So you shouldn't be what? Asleep in darkness that the day overtakes you. What does that mean? That you're asleep and the day came in. When you woke up, it's sunrise. That shouldn't happen to you, because that's what it's going to say. That when you're going to be sleeping and all of a sudden you're in the time of Christ now. Oh, shoot, we're here getting judged.
It's funny. I remember a time I fell asleep and I woke up and I was shocked and I'm like, what's going on? Like, everybody seemed like they were awake. I remember I went downstairs and I was telling my mom good morning, but it was evening.
Oh, you say it was evening, yeah.
So young as a child, you're not paying attention to certain stuff. So now going back to what you're saying there.
Sometimes happen when you knock out, you're like, oh, you swear it's a new day, but you're still in the same day. You just fell asleep at a different time. Yeah.
I have a question. 12 p.m. in the nighttime is literally midnight. Correct?
12 a.m., yeah.
Well, what they call 12 a.m. It's not really 12 a.m.
What do you mean?
Because it's still in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So it can't be a.m. It have to be p.m., right? Will it not be p.m.?
Well, what would we base it? What's a.m. and p.m.? And there's no a.m. and p.m. in the Bible, so I can't even.
It will be in the night time, so you can't
Yeah.
say 12 p.m. It will be 12 p.m. according to...
No, but that's what I'm saying. There's no p.m. in the, so we're just using that. It's just 12 at night.
Right, but I'm
It's,
just using it to
yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So 12 midnight will literally be, it's correct. It is midnight because it's the middle of
yeah.
the night.
It's midnight, yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, it's 12 at midnight.
They are correct with
Yeah, that term, but they're not correct with the time
the
part.
time.
Yeah. You know, you're correct.
So which one is more, should we observe more, the Roman night watch or the Essene?
Any night, observing night watch period is good. So whether 3 or 4, there's not really, hey, you got to watch this one or that one. Well, if you want to go to the original, the Hebrews was doing 4. 4 is the door. But 3 is, 3 is one as well, too.
I'm gonna scream out my window, first watch all is well.
All right. So I was making a point. What was I saying again? I was just about to say something. What was I saying again?
Making the day overtake you.
Oh, yes, the day overtake you. All right. So once again, you shouldn't be sleeping. So right here it says, but ye brethren are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. So you should not be sleeping fully through the night unconscious. You should be waking up. And once again, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily sleep through the night. You can wake up for a second, but the whole point is you're doing something spiritual. You go into the scriptures, because what did they say in Psalm 63 and 6? When I remember thee upon my bed, meditate upon thee in the watches. All right. Here going up and they're praising at these times, saying, hey, I take recognition of these times, and I'm praying to God at these times, and I'm being alert at these times.
So it's going to be a night owl.
Well, once again, it's not to say the person's not sleeping at all. They're waking up and watching at periodically at these times to show what? That they're not a child of darkness. If you want to show that you're a child of light, you have to do this, because the child of darkness love to just chill in the darkness and not do nothing of the scriptures. That's what it's saying. So if you're going to be in the night just not doing nothing and not doing scriptures, this is what the children of darkness do spiritually, but you're doing it now physically in the nighttime. That is a representation of that. All right, so give us verse 4 again.
All right, it's the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 4. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all children of light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness.
All right, so he's saying you are children, and you should not be fully just in darkness and knocked out and, no recognition that when the day came in. All right, you are children of light. We are not of the night, nor of the darkness. All right, continue for us.
All right. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others.
All right, so he's saying, let us not sleep. What does it mean? Sleep means you're totally unconscious. When you're using that time, it's not to say you're totally unconscious, but you're supposed to be using that time of what? Consciousness is what you're going into the scriptures. You're going into something. You're not just there awake, looking through your phone, looking through social media, doing this, but you're doing something constructive with the Lord, right? Because this is the time of proving that, hey, I'm a child of light. I like to read. This is the time now. Lights out. Darkness is outside. All this stuff is here. This is the time now for you to show that, hey, I'm a child of light based on this. It's action go time now when it's actually in the nighttime. All right. God gave you a physical representation of that evil for you to attack. That's why your body goes to sleep. Everything that your body is doing at that time, that's what somebody outside who doesn't want to come to the church, that's what their body is doing. They're like, I don't want to do that.
What if you have certain
Yeah.
jobs though? Like, what if you have certain jobs, like I'm working in the night, and then I go to bed like 8 o'clock.
So that means you're up in the night. So you're already there. So you just have to pray at the times then.
All right, that's true.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong. Right. So once again, it's just being consciousness at that time and not being someone who's just knocked out sleep, or once again, you're just going into wickedness in the night. In the nighttime is not a time where people want to study and stuff. They want to do fleshly stuff. Daytime, you can be like, all right, job. I'll do my job in the daytime. Everyone does their job in the daytime. Who doesn't do their job in the daytime? Everybody. What are they doing in the nighttime, though? That's when the sin is going on. All right? So you saying, you know what? I study the scriptures in the daytime. Okay, everyone does good in the daytime. What are you doing at nighttime?
And I guess
What are you going into in the nighttime?
certain armies attack at certain times, so that
Yeah.
the army of darkness is going to attack at night.
Yeah, they know you're not watching at the nighttime. Right? When the police gonna come kick in your door, they're like, yo, wait for him, because that flesh, they know about 4 o'clock, 5, they know you in the bed. You in the bed. You're not night watching nothing. Yeah. They're like, we gonna attack 3, 4. Some people stay up late, so they're gonna come that 4 or 5 period where they know you're not catching the sunrise. You're not catching no sunrise.
Groggy, so
Yeah.
fight back.
Every door they kick in, these people
That's why
sleep.
Sometimes you see videos when they're driving through certain neighborhoods, like, the dash cam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I seen one where the man was out at like 6 o'clock in the morning because ain't nobody gonna be out there.
No, nobody's driving that. Everyone's bed.
At those times.
Yeah, they know now, right? And now if somebody is out that time, why are they gonna pull you over? Because they're like, yo, people of the flesh, they're in the thing. You must be what? Someone who like the night. What do people of the night do? Wickedness. So that's why they're gonna pull you over in the nighttime.
Around the corner.
Yeah, they're like, what are you doing out here? Your flesh going like that, you're supposed to be asleep unless you're out here doing wickedness. So now they're like, all right, let's check him. All right, so just looking at those things. All right, so once again, you have to wake up at these times and check the house and bless the Most High. All right, continue for us.
All right, this is the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 6. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober.
All right, so he said, you're not supposed to sleep as others sleep. You're supposed to watch. What is the watch? We have the watch here, these periodic times. All right, so you should not just be asleep. You should be watching, which means, hey, just pay attention to the periodic times. The same way we pray 3 times a day. Once again, we're separating day from night. Once again, we pray 3 times a day. How much times you pray in the night? All right, so this is what I'm saying. These things are separated. They're 2 different periods. A day is separated from night. All right, yes, you did that in the day. What did you do in the night when it really counts? The night is what counts, because the night is when wickedness is out.
Yeah, so you're praying during the day, giving thanks, blessing the day, talking to your brothers and sisters. And at nighttime, you're like, protect us from what's coming. Or if there's
Yeah, prayer. You need to still go, because it's, remember, they're separate. It's just like it's not day, but it's its own period too. It's the same amount of time as day. So if we pray 3 times in a day, night has the same amount of time. And he's saying for us not to be totally unconscious, because right now, guess what we're in? We're in night right now. Why? Because the Son of God is not here. So if you're not going to do those things in the night, when are you going to do it? When the Son of God is here? You see what I'm saying? This is everything going back up to the law of nature principle on why you must defeat the nighttime. You must defeat the nighttime if you're saying you're a child of light. Because then you're lying. Because really and truly, the night outside, you like the night. And you fall to all the things that the night makes people fall to. And even though you say these things, you go outside, and we're doing it in day. It's easy to do it in the day. I'm pretty sure those people would easily be able to follow Christ if Christ is here. If the day is here, of course they're going to operate in the day. It's the nighttime. That's what comes, all the fleshly stuff. Everything happens in the night, because you're now without Christ. You're without that light now. This is now when it counts. We're in the time now where ignorance is out. All that stuff is out. We're in the nighttime waiting on Christ, the sun, to come up. So we got to watch during the night, because Christ is not here. The sun is not here. So it's nighttime, which is why we're watching, which is why we're going into lessons, doing all of this. So just once again, if you want to defeat this, you're going to have to metaphorically go and, change the way you approach the nighttime to get what is really being said about ignorance and evil. All right, and we're done there. Actually, give us verse 8 again. Actually, give us verse 8.
All right, so book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 8.
And start from 7 and give us 8.
All right, this is verse 7. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us, who are of the day, be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for an helmet, the hope of salvation. For God had...
No. You can stop right there. All right. So once again, be sober. All right. So but let us who are of the day be sober. And to be sober, when you go and look at it, it says to keep watch. All right. Be sober, keep watch. So let us who are of the day keep watch. You got to keep watch. All right. So for they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love. All right, so just wanted to emphasize that whole thing there. All right, so we're now going to go into midnight. We're just going to clarify this midnight stuff, and we're basically at the end of our calendar lesson. All right, so what is midnight?
What is midnight? Midnight etymology. Midnight, a noun, the middle of the night, 12 o'clock at night. Old English, midnight, or midranet, with dative of adjective. See mid, adjective plus night, midnight.
All right, so midnight is the middle of the night. So once again, you cannot have a new day in the middle of a period of night. It doesn't work like that. All right, and that's what they've done. They've changed the day so that there's a new day happening in the middle of the night, which we know a day is what? Separated from the night. All right, so we have the night going on and we're in the middle of it. How do we then get to a new day when there's no sun even coming up, when the sun is what represents a day? All right, so it's clear why you have to pay attention, because this is what's framing your world outside. If you celebrated your birthday at 12 a.m. at some point in time, then you were deceived by this very same thing. And if you celebrated your birthday on a day and it wasn't on the day that you were born on, so you were born on Monday, but somehow you celebrating your birthday on a Thursday, how are you celebrating your birthday? So clearly you've been deceived. Now, do you like to be deceived? Because if you like to be deceived, then you can continue on the world calendar. But if you don't like to be deceived, then you need to search for the truth. And the truth is here and why we're dealing with said calendar and operating in the time that we're operating. All right. So once again, a new day does not happen in the middle of the night, which they call midnight. So them starting a new day at 12 o'clock at night, all right, goes against the laws of nature. And this is what Daniel 7:25 is speaking about. All right. So what is midnight used for?
All right. Midnight is the transition time from one day to the next, the moment when the date changes on the local official clock time for any particular jurisdiction. By clock time, midnight is the opposite of noon, differing from it by 12 hours.
All right. So they show you what is midnight for? The transition of time from one day to the next. How can midnight transition from one day to the next when day is represented by the sun? So this is where we're trying to show you, right? You're just following what man is saying now. All right. So question again, how do we get a new day in the middle of the night? All right. And I put a chessboard there. Your chessboard represent days and night. All right. Day is separated by night. All right. That's how you get days. How do we get days? Because the days are separated by night, or else you would have one day forever. All right. So day and night can never be united as one. All right. But we see here, it takes, so we see the white box and the black box. It takes two of those to get to the next day. The white box is 12 hours. The black box is 12 hours. It takes 24 hours to get to the next white box. All right. Days are separated by night. If there was no night, he can never separate day for you. You could never have a new day.
So that game really just represents day and night.
Yeah, day and night. Yeah, that's why you see when the same checkerboard that the Masons have and all it represents is day and night. Yeah, I mean the Illuminati. Yeah, yeah.
Even in their thing too with the Jackie and Boaz, they have the sun and the moon on top of the pillars.
Yeah, so this represents day and night, the two realms. All right, they're separated. All right, we pray 3 times a day. We're supposed to be praying 3 times a night as well, according to the scriptures. All right, but that one's left for who's going to watch. The scripture, he knows everyone's up in the day. So, hey, pray 3 times a day. But the night one is who going to remember God in that time of what? Darkness, tiredness, ignorance. So God is actually, he'll be more what? He'll be more what? Pleased with your nighttime prayer, because that's the time that you're surrounded by all the worries, all the darkness, all the evil. All right, so doing it in the nighttime even shows more faith, because that's the time where now you're really being tested. Now your flesh is testing you. Your body's falling asleep. This is all the stuff that people are experiencing outside when you're trying to tell them, come to the truth. They're feeling that way. We get to experience. If you want to know what they feel like every time when you're telling them something, just do the scriptures in the nighttime.
You look at it, that's what you see the most I don't like lukewarm. Because if you were to put if you were to put white and black together, mix it as far as color, it'll turn to gray. And gray is like uncertainty. Right?
It's funny too, because I wear a lot of gray, and so I've been telling me, you gotta stop wearing gray. And now that you broke that, they're like, yo, I don't like you in gray color. So you know what? I might have to leave that gray. The gray is lukewarm color. Yeah. It doesn't look good on me. People have noticed that gray doesn't look good on me. All right, so I'll take heed to it. I'll stay away from the gray. All right.
It's the only gray hairs.
Only gray hair. When they say white, yeah, I was about to say they're white hairs. All right. So once again, day and night. All right, day is separated. Days are separated by night, and the perfect representation of that is your checkered or chess board, and that's what we have there to show you the proper separation. Now, midnight would happen in the middle of that black checkerboard spot. All right, which that doesn't make any sense. All right, your day, you would now have to put a piece of that white stripe in the middle of that night box, because they're saying in the middle of night, which that's in the middle of that black box, that's when a new day is happening. So we'd have to put a little portion of that light right there in the middle in the new. But how can that happen? So it doesn't make any sense. All right. So we're going to continue now. So we're at 1 Thessalonians 5:5.
It's the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 5. Ye are all children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of the darkness.
All right, so we follow a solar calendar. We follow the sunrise, right? We watch in the night, waiting on the sun to rise. We are children of the day. We are not children of the night nor of darkness. We do not like to dwell in the ignorance just in those times. We fight against that with light. All right, since we've just been talking about it so much, we're just going to get to the etymology of calendar. All right, what is a calendar? What is a calendar? God gave us a calendar. When did we get a calendar? All right, well, let's go.
All right. Calendar etymology. Calendar, a noun from the 1200. Calendar, the year as divided systematically into days and months from the mid 14th century as a table showing divisions of the year. From Old French calendar, list, register. From Latin calendarium, account book. From calendae, calendae. From calends, the first day of the Roman month, when debts fell due and accounts were reckoned.
All right, so a calendar, the year is divided systematically into days and months. All right, a table showing division of years. All right, it's from the French calendrier, which means a list or a register. So a calendar is a list or a register. A list or a register of what? All right, a calendarium in Latin is an account book. Account book of what? All right. Calends, all right, so the first day of the Roman month, all right, so the calends, the first day of the Roman month when debts fell due and accounts were reckoned, all right, so calends, all right, is showing you, hey, that's a day when debts are due, things are accounted for, all right, and that's what they use that day, the calends, all right, which is the first day of the Roman month, which I told you, all right, these are the day where they want all their debts and all of that stuff done for them. So we're going to go to the Bovier's Law Dictionary, we're going to see what is calendar in the law.
All right, this is calendar out of the Bouvier's 1856 Law Dictionary. A list of prisoners containing their names, the time when they were committed and by whom, and the cause of their commitments.
All right, so a calendar is a list. It's a registration. All right, what is the list? It's a list of prisoners. All right, the time, right, they were committed. So a calendar, when you go to jail, you're going to see it's a list, and it has the prisoner's name, when they came in here, all right, what they committed, right, by whom, all the causes of their commitments. All right, and we're just going to go to the book of Adam and Eve, the first book of Adam and Eve, chapter 3.
It's the first book of Adam and Eve, chapter 3, verse 1. God said to Adam, I have ordained on this earth days and years, and you and your descendants shall live and walk in them until the days and years are fulfilled, when I shall send the word that created you, and against which you have transgressed, the word that made you come out of the garden, and that raised you when you were fallen.
All right, so Adam ended up into the earth after he sinned. All right, so when he sinned, he got put in the earth, and the earth became a prison to him. All right, this is why he's under a calendar. All we're here is counting. When you're in prison, what do people do in prison?
That's what they do. They draw the lines on the wall. And
Yeah.
cross it out. Line on the wall, cross it out.
That's what Adam's waiting for before.
That's what he was doing in the cave.
All right, so we're here as prisoners in this earth that has this sun and moon that's calculating our time of sentence that we fell from God, because where Adam was, there was no time. There was no days. All right, there is no days because there's only one day. The sun is always outside. The light is always outside. So when he came into this realm, if he doesn't have these things here, he would be stuck here forever. You see what I'm saying? Because how would he get, what day you gonna get out on? There is only one day. All right? There's only one day. That means you will always be here. That's why he says, yo, when this is all removed, you're gonna be stuck somewhere for eternity. Because this day here, these days are only here to calculate the time until we get back to that eternity time. This is a jail. In jail, once again, there's the days there that they're calculating. All right, and your name is there when you came there. So that's when you were born. When were you born? All those papers are just showing when you came into jail. All right, then we have Satan here, who, when you're in jail, you can get more sentences. So you're already there for a sentence. What's the sentence? The sentence that happened with Adam. But while you're in jail now, you can catch more charges. So that's what Satan's doing. It's like, you already got Adam's charge on you that got you in here. Now, while you're in here, you're fighting, you're doing this. We got more charges on you now. So you hear someone go to jail and they're like, yo, I caught another charge inside of there, man.
Solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Get adjudicated in jail.
Yeah.
Where the captain of the guard and the other 2 guards sit you down, and you're always found guilty.
Yeah.
Right? But so it's weird. So it's like a jail.
They can add time to your sentence also?
Oh yeah. More time. So that's what I'm saying. We're already here for this time. He said you're gonna add more time, which is a life. He's gonna give you a life sentence now.
Call the cops to come in and charge you. So basically, jail in here would be equivalent to like solitary confinement because we're already in the jail.
Yeah, correct.
And then solitary confinement in the jail would be in the deeper depths.
The deeper depths of hell, correct. Yes, now you got it. You in there, you already confined out here. Now you in confinement, you in the black hole.
Yeah.
All right, so we're understanding that God, when Adam sinned and transgressed, he got placed in the earth that had days, months, all of that. That's what comes, it's synonymous with in law. That's what I'm saying. They know Satan wants to use everything God used, he wants to use against you. So that's why he set up a jail. He set up the same principles. He's like, yo, he doesn't make anything up. He just uses what God uses already. And it's like, all right, I can use the same thing to punish you here right now by setting it up. And if you don't get the gospel, then how can you free yourself from the jail? How can you free yourself from what's going to come? So now because we understand the gospel, when we send someone goes to jail now, we can send a document there. And guess what? The person's getting out of jail. How? Because we know what jail is. We know the law of nature. This is all predicated on the same stuff. Satan is only using God's stuff. But if you understand God's stuff, then he can't use it against you no more. He's a plagiarizer. So if we know that what? Christ already came here and freed Adam, because the whole thing was that. What did he say here? He said,
We bailed them out.
right? He said, until days and years are fulfilled, when I shall send the word that created you, against which you have transgressed. The word that made you, and that word that made you come out of the garden and raised you that when you were fallen. So he said that word is going to come there and he's going to free you. So the word came and freed him now. So if we're free now, how can he be trying to put us back in? Because people are denying that Christ is even real or came. So now the same jail system that is made and reflects that, you're getting stuck in there because you don't believe the gospel that he came to free Adam from this very jail we're in right now, which is the earth.
They're not believing the warden now because Satan was the warden. Now Christ is the warden, and the warden is the only one that can get you out of there.
All right. So this is what we're seeing. This is why they want people to forget the gospel, because all the other religions, they bring you back into the law. Muslim, Islam, all that. It forces you to do the law. We're saying by coming to Christ again, we've completed the sentence and we're free from the law, and he's given us grace to fight the sin that's in us, right? That we know we're going to commit. It's in us. All right. But if we don't come into the church and admit it like that, then the law is outside waiting for you to what? Sin, and then charge you and then bring you to the jail. Right. But if you're in Christ now, you can say what? How can I sin? We're in Christ. We have grace. This is a religious right. You can't bring me to jail for a sin, because sin or crime is sin. So the word crime that they've hidden to you means sin. Sin is against law, God. So they're bringing you into jail to say you did something against God by committing a crime, and you're a criminal, which also, look up the word, means a sinner. By doing good. Yes. Right. Or by bail or by. All right. So this is the important info here. All right. So just wanted to end that there on what the calendar is. The calendar is just there to calculate time until what? Until God comes. All right. And you know what? Let's go to Revelation 20 and 11. Go to Revelation 20 and 11 for me. And read to verse 15.
Revelations, like, 20. Start from what verse?
11 to 15.
It's the book of Revelation, chapter 20, verse 11. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and the death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
All right, so here we see now that the judge has came back and he's coming into the jail now, and the jail has the calends, which is the stuff with all the accusations, and he's opening it up and he's like, all right, let me see what y'all been doing in the jail while you've been waiting to be freed. All right. And the book of life means this person's about to be freed out of here, and the people who ain't, those are the people who's going to be into damnation. All right. So just once again, that brief understanding, this is the secret of the time. That's actually the secret of the times. All right. That the time is predicated on you being in jail. All right. And that's what it's all just calculating the time that you've been here, because you wouldn't need that where Adam was. All right. All of it's just to count down your days to freedom, or your days to being able to get into the heavenly realm, which God is coming, the seventh day. That's all the calendar is for. And then in the calendar, Satan, the accuser, knows you're in jail. And while you're in jail, he's trying to get you more charges to keep you in jail forever.
That's why they call it a correctional center.
All right. So that was the lesson for today's Secret of Times, Essene Christian Solar Calendar and New Year. There's a lot in it. We're going to have exam on it. It's very important. Once again, it said if the Christian or the Hebrew don't understand their understand their calendar, or have a calendar, or festival days or feast days, there's not even any point of your existence. All right. So if you don't understand all this stuff, the calendar here, we're seeing what's the point of the calendar. This is dire to your soul. The days are dire to your soul. All right. So we got to make sure that we're remembering these things. All right. So with that being said, we're going to go to Philippians 4 and 8.
It's the book of Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest.
All right. So what's honest? We've seen that the honesty is what? These people aren't following the solar calendar. They're not following the Enochian calendar, not following the calendar from Qumran. Who was honest? For once, we can say the Pope was honest. Pope Benedict, at least. Right? He was honest about what? The calendar that Christ followed and his disciples followed is the calendars of the Essenes, the calendars in Jubilees, the calendar in Enoch, the Enochian calendar that was shown to Enoch. This is the true calendar with the true calculation of 364 that has the perfect division into it of 52 weeks, that does not move any feast day out of its order, that is aligned with all the occurrences that happen in the Bible, that is aligned with the death of Christ, that is aligned with the whole makeup of our purpose. That's the honest truth. All right, continue for us.
Whatsoever things are just.
All right, it's just whatever's going to happen to them for changing the calendar, as we see. All right, he told us times and law will be changed in Christendom. All right, continue for us.
Whatsoever things are pure.
All right, what's pure? 364 divided by 7 gives you 52 weeks. That's pure. 360 is a cycle, is a year. That's pure. 4 days for the 4 seasons added to it. That's pure. Continue for us.
Whatsoever things are lovely.
All right, what's lovely? When we're on the same time, when we're on God's time, when we're on time as well. All right, when we're on God's time, on time. That's what God seeks us to be. All right, continue for us.
whatsoever things are of a good report.
All right, what's a good report? It's a good report when it comes back and we're on the time of God. You want to have a good report, as we see before Revelations 20, when God comes back and he's checking the calendar, as we know what a calendar is now, the list of registry with all accusations, everything under it. All right. You want to have a good report when that happens, or you going back to hell.
It's real, it's a custom Bible.
All right, yeah. All right, continue for us.
If there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Those things which ye have both learned and received and heard and seen in me do. And the God of peace shall be with you.
All right, so do the things that you've seen us do. Follow the Essene calendar. Follow it according to how we placed it down, and you'll be in line with God. So with that being said, we want to say all praises be unto the Most High, Almighty, Ahaya Yeshua Christ, our Lord, our God, our Savior. This is the Essene Community Church of Christ. My name is Archbishop Shamar.
And I'm Bishop Mike Allah.
This was our Sabbath report / lesson, Secret of the Times, Essene Christian Solar Calendar, and New Year. Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. We deal with the Sabbath day and the Lord's day, understanding that both of these days are similitudes of things to come. The Sabbath being the Lord's rest, and as we all just went through, the Lord's day being that day of eternity where there's no more darkness. All right, but forever is light. So with that being said, peace and blessings, shalom, 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 shalom.
Shalom. Peace and blessings.
Only the children of light is gonna understand this.
For there are three philosophical sects among the Jews, the followers of the first of which are the Pharisees, of the second, the Sadducees, and the third sect, and the third sect, and the third sect, which pretends to a severer discipline, are called deceived. These last are Jews by birth and Jews by birth